Andre yelled for Quickhandle to stop. It was hard for him to see the death of his old friend, but the silver dragon was adamant. Quickhandle told the magician to shut up and watch. He will be the next in line. She quickly killed Violetta. Despite her threatening words, Quickhandle was also very exhausted at this moment. She spent a lot of effort stopping time. If she could use her abilities endlessly, then the strongest being in the world wouldn't be Shiren Rankandel. She took care of Violette, but she used too much strength. She now needs the help of Jin and Muraken to cope with the magician. It's good that they were there. If she was alone, then she would have an unenviable end. Andre Zippel said she had gone too far. Such arrogance is allowed only by the best. He was obviously referring to himself. Andre pulled something out of his robe. In his hand was a stone emitting an ominous glow. The moment Muraken saw her, he exclaimed in disbelief. He recognized this sinister object as the Source Stone. The stone transformed into its true form. His torso broke through the spiritual energy, revealing a massive shadow on the ground. Muraken nervously watched this. According to him, it was impossible. The stone had to be destroyed. Where did old Andre get it from? Soon after, a long creature emerged from the ball, making a screeching sound that tore the eardrums. From what Muraken called the Source Stone, a huge black creature resembling a face appeared. However, his eye sockets were empty, and since part of the face was disfigured, the exact features were indistinguishable. Andre said that Quickhandle was born a silver dragon of time and lived with the idea of her own superiority. But she was wrong. Humans, dragons, and even gods will eventually fall into the hands of the Zippel family. She should stop denying it and accept it as a fact. As soon as the face formed, the long neck of the black creature stretched out, and the figure moved to bite the Quickhandle. The Source Stone preserves the power of all the gods. When danger came to the world, they created it as a security measure to prevent the end of the world. As a result, the gods themselves destroyed it. The Source Stone was so strong that it could erase the world instead of protecting it. So why an item that was supposed to disappear in the hands of a magician? Quickhandle groaned in pain. Her right side was injured. Black and evil energy was destroying her flesh. It was the first time she had met such a thing, so she did not know how to react and defend herself. Andre laughed nastily. This was where she belonged, a place where the weak must bow to the strong. He's the hunter, and she's the prey. At that moment, the evil Muraken turned into a dragon and attacked Andre and forced him to retreat a few meters. Andre Zippel was only a little surprised to see a black dragon. There are only 2 of them left in the world. Apparently, he is the Muraken of the Rankandel family. Has he really woken up from a 1,000-year slumber? So the guy next to the dragon is his contractor. Andre recognized Jean, the youngest member of the Rankandel family, who left the house recently. Since Andre recognized him, there was no need to hide his face. Andre's eyes filled with greed. Initially, he only wanted to absorb the contractor Oltak. However, the opportunity to make 2 big catches filled him with greed. His appetite has grown noticeably. If so, to be honest, he decided to wake up his sleeping friend. The face approached the corpse and whispered a spell. Soon after, black smoke came out of the wind dragon's wound, after which it began to heal. However, this was not a normal regeneration. Instead of green skin and emerald scales, the missing flesh was filled with the same energy as the Source Stone. Andre apologized to his old friend. He shouldn't have saved energy. In less than 10 seconds, the exposed white bones were covered with newly grown flesh, skin, and scales. He slowly raised his body. There should still be lakes of blood and remnants of flesh with scales on the ground, but the wind dragon seemed untouched, except for a massive black spot on one side of the neck. Violetta thought Muraken was dead. They immediately clung to each other. Muraken told Violetta to get lost, saying that he was an ordinary lizard corpse. The wind dragon chuckled. Although Muraken lost ground, his words were still as harsh. Having finished his monologue, Violetta exhaled. The compressed wind projectiles quickly displaced the energy of the shadows as they moved. His breathing was definitely stronger than before the resurrection, all because of the Source Stone. This artifact was too powerful. Violetta was delighted, looking at the view in front of him. The fact of defeating the old bully was refreshing. Although he became incomparably weaker than in the past, Muraken was still at the top among all the creatures in the sky at some point. Therefore, he wasn't going to lose so quickly. Resisting the breath, Muraken's body dissolved into black smoke. Then he walked up to Violetta and gathered his body back, showing himself next to his enemy. Hand-to-hand combat ensued. Every time the 2 massive dragons collided, the island rumbled and shook. Muraken and Violetta were going to use Dragon's Breath at the same time. The Wind Dragon declared that he would be known as the one who killed the legend. He was already confident of his victory over the Black Dragon of the Rankandel family. While these 2 were figuring out who was stronger, Andre flew up to the exhausted Quickhandle. Andre Zippel said that initially he wanted to be softer, but now that she saw this face, she would have to die. The old mage sensed Jin's footsteps and turned around, expecting an ambush. It would be suicide to get involved in a dragon battle. That's why Jin chose to hit Andre. This is the only place where he could be useful with his current level of strength. But he didn't even think to hit him from behind. Instead of swinging the sword, Jin opened his palm in front of Andre's face. The spell was ready in his left hand. The spell that everyone thought had disappeared. Ancient light magic that was once owned by only one person in the world. Flashbang, authored by Chenmi. As the mage staggered back, Jin drew his sword and swung it. He felt the blade cutting through the flesh on the opponent's chest. Jin recoiled to hit him again, but the Violetta Wind Dragon turned to face him. When all this happened, Violetta pushed Mirakin away and quickly moved towards Jin. Violetta fell to the ground right where Jin was standing and hit his tail. The boy was able to throw his body to the side to dodge the attack, but it was impossible to dodge the subsequent attacks while avoiding the face of the Source Stone. He felt that he was standing right on the threshold of death. He clenched his fist, and the Orgala pendant shattered. He hasn't taken it off once in the last 6 years. Jin decided to finally call his sister. At the same time, a flash of mana flashed, and the interdimensional gate opened, and out of it she appeared. One of the greatest knights in the world, praised by everyone. A lonely white whale. His older sister is Luna Rankandel. During all this time, her younger brother has not contacted her, but now it seems that circumstances have changed. Sword axe, Krantel, a sword with a point forged in the shape of an axe blade, a weapon created to satisfy the tastes of the moon. At first glance, it could be said that it was a heavy and an effective weapon. It was heavier than 3 or 4 people, but the moon was waving it as if it was as light as a feather. The first blow deflected Violetta's breath, splitting it into 2 parts. The second blow landed on the face caused by the Source Stone. Andre, who was confident and relaxed, looked anxious and tense. On the other hand, after landing, Violetta did not dare to attack again. As soon as the moon appeared, the battle scene quickly changed. She stood in front of Jin and looked around, and then smiled slightly. Deputy head of the Zippel family and the Wind Dragon. That's really enough to call my sister. She told Jin that he did a good job. She also asked if he was injured. If Jin had been killed, she would have turned the whole Zippel family upside down, causing a bloody massacre. Jin was in a sorry state. He forced a wry smile. He barely lasted. Just a little more, and he wouldn't be there. Jin thanked her for coming on time. After making sure that Jin's life was not in danger, she turned her gaze to Andre and Violetta. She asked Andre if he had swallowed his tongue. Luna wanted him to explain how he was related to her younger brother. All this time Andre and Violetta just stared at the moon, unable to find words. Their opponents are the deputy head of the Zippel family and the Wind Dragon, animated by an artifact with the power of God. It will be difficult even for the moon to cope with them. But looking into her deep eyes, Jin was sure. The fight was already won. After all, she was the definition of the strongest. If not her, then who? Mirakin approached the Jin with a quickie. They needed to move away a little. He apologized to Jin. He couldn't block Violetta because that bastard controlled the wind. Anyway, he praised his sister. If she had appeared a little later, there would have been no wet spot left of the Jin. It was only thanks to her that he was alive. The wound on Andre's stomach began to heal. He said it was an unexpected turn of events. The white whale herself looked at the light. Besides, he had proof. The Rankandel family broke the Zippel family oath. Luna's brother Rankandel used magic. The Zippel family won't be able to turn a blind eye to this. Luna grinned. Anyway, he shouldn't worry so much about it. After all, he will not be able to tell the news to his family. Luna slowly pointed the sword axe at the man. Andre, in a rage, attacked with the face of the Source Stone. He couldn't stand how some girl dared not know her place. No one but the Rankandels looked at him with contempt. That's why he hated them so much. Luna easily cut the face with one swing of her sword. All the Zippels she met were unbearable windbags. As she expected, the deputy head was no different. In one step, the moon flew like a bullet towards Andre. The great magician instantly found himself in the zone of a massive blow of the sword axe. If she hits at least once, Andre will be immediately cut in 2. Violetta took the blow. Many places of Violetta were cut. Although it wasn't a fatal injury, the Wind Dragon was startled by its inability to react to her attack. The moon was absurdly fast. To Violetta and Andre, the moon was moving at the speed of light. It was impossible to follow her movements with the naked eye. It was the ultimate speed. They could only react to her actions by predicting the next step. She looked at Violetta and asked if he preferred to stay in his real form. It was great. Then her blade has a place to roam. Surprisingly, after hearing the man's mocking advice, Violetta turned into a man. As Luna said, one wrong move and he would be torn into dozens of pieces. The Zippel family didn't necessarily have zero information about the moon. Being the strongest after Shire, the Zippels endlessly scraped information about her. However, intelligence agents who got too close often died, and every single one of the Zippels who fought against her died. Besides, the moon was a mystery to the Zippel family. They only heard rumors about her power, and no one told them about the whole truth. They were only content with a vague conclusion that she had surpassed human limits. Violetta nodded, hearing Andre's insistent cry. Since they had been working together for a long time, They could announce their next step without words. The wind began to squeeze Violetta's palm, the shape faintly resembling a spear. And even in human form, Violetta had a black spot on her neck. The power he had received from the sphere during his resurrection was still being used. Luna was pretty relaxed. However, as soon as Violetta began to conjure the powers inherited from the Source Stone, she realized that the dragon's movements had changed. This power wasn't magic. It was similar to both the energy of dragons and the energy of demons. Luna suggested that the reason why the wind dragon was going out of his way was to buy time for Andre. Thus, she realized that Andre needed time to use the artifact. She mockingly said that the deputy head of the Zippel family and the wind dragon had to rely on such a pitiful item. Do they really think that this insignificant thing can save them? She understood why it took the Zippels so long to catch up with the Rankandel family. They had such a pathetic person as their deputy. Wind, aura, mana, and energy of the Source Stone. All 4 powers seeped into the spear. The spear was constantly growing and reached a point where it no longer resembled one. Without hesitation, Violetta started waving her weapon. Luna easily dodged the first attack. Then she deflects all the blows with her sword. After a few swings, Violetta couldn't stand it anymore. Seeing a good moment, the moon pushed the wind dragon away with a strong kick in the chest. The dragon breathed heavily. That was it. That was his limit. Luna asked if he had anything to show her. If not, then she will finish everything quickly. The Krantel emitted a bright radiance. The endless light of the blade shone in all directions, resembling the light emitted by the sun. His aura looked more sacred than dangerous. The third and final movement of the Rankandels, meteor shower. The blade slammed into the ground, and, in accordance with the name of the technique, the clouds dispersed when the meteors began to fall, right where the arrogant opponents of the moon were standing. Jin remembered his Uncle Zed's words. If one had to describe the family's sword technique in one word, it would be dominance. She is destructive and ruthless. Battle, conquest, enslavement. The thinking of the Rankandels is contained in the sword. That's why there was no sword technique for Rankandels. The only thing they have for killing opponents is a secret technique and a final move. Jin's eyes filled with awe as he looked up at the sky. He had heard his brothers discussing the various techniques of the family several times in his past life. After seeing how the sky opened up and the aura fell to the ground, he was able to conclude that this was the third final movement, meteor shower. But this was the first time he had actually witnessed it. And it's also the first time he's seen one of his family's secret techniques for the first time. Countless balls of energy fell like shooting stars. When each streak of light fell on the ground, Jin felt the impact with his whole body. It seemed to him that he was looking at the absolute limit of human capabilities. He concentrated on watching, not wanting to miss a single moment. He wanted to remember this scene and recreate it himself someday. Recreate the same domineering force. This final move was beautiful, and it also gave its enemies a sense of hopelessness. Handsome and strong. Every time a meteor hit the ground, the whole island cried. The earth was mutilated, the stones split, and the dirt crumbled into smaller particles. The meteors were powerful enough to turn everything they come into contact with into nothing. Among the explosions, a helpless man and a dragon looking for shelter looked pathetic. They realized that they could not survive by relying on some unfinished artifact, which eventually filled their hearts with hopelessness and suffering. Impossible, Andre muttered the word like a prayer. Violetta returned to his dragon form and jumped to protect him. Andre was in shock. It doesn't look like Luna used the power of the god she has a contract with, or a rare artifact. She only used human strength. But how is this possible? Violetta said that Andre must survive by any means, even if his body was torn into millions of pieces. As long as there was even one broken bone or piece of flesh left, Violetta could be resurrected by the power of the sphere. That's why he was never afraid of death. If he could be resurrected, then there was no reason to be afraid of death. However, the power of the moon was still terrifying. With only one technique, she made a 9th-rank magician feel terror and hopelessness. Maybe even with the Origin Stone, it would be impossible to defeat the person in front of her. Andre squeezed the Source Stone. Right. As long as he has the Devil's Stone, he won't die. With a stone, oh god. The stone gave Andre a sense of confidence. On the other hand, the moon was overflowing with majestic might, lowering its sword axe. She didn't even look at the meteor shower that tore Violetta apart, consumed by dissatisfaction with the results. She destroyed the island and killed the great magician Zippel, as well as his dragon. And yet she was not satisfied. She wanted to suck up to her father's level. She was still a long way from her father. Shiren's meteor shower, which she had witnessed only once in the past, was much stronger. She had to do something that would absolutely dominate the battlefield. Only then could she think about comparing herself to her father. But even so, she was sure it had paid off. With that thought, she looked around. Her younger brother is clearly provoked. She wanted to send a message to her brother that he was watching an unfinished but amazing technique, that he must grow up and become much stronger to become the next patriarch of the Rankandel family. And Jin understood his sister's feelings, even if she didn't say it. or even if she said it and Jin couldn't hear it. Even though he could barely see her from afar, he understood what she wanted to tell him. She lit a fire in his heart. Compared to any other moment, he had never been so passionate about fencing. The thought of surpassing his older sister and their father to inherit the throne beckoned him. He will never forget this moment. When it seemed that everything was over, the moon felt someone else's energy. Slowly, Andre appeared, who merged with the source stone. Luna turned and looked at Andre's new form. Her pride was a little hurt. She will be annoyed if the clowning drags on in front of her younger brother. Andre gritted his teeth and made a terrifying sound, something between a scream and a growl. Jin asked about what it was. Muraken replied that he understood everything. The Zippels use contractors to create the source stone. The source stone is a weapon of the gods, although it is of low quality now. Although it is of poor quality, it is still dangerous. Andre's windless domain has long since disappeared. Muraken spread his wings and began to rise, and Jin instinctively screamed. They have to fight too. It was wrong to leave his sister in such a dangerous situation. Mirka said that Luna is able to cope with such a piece of shit as Andre. They will only hinder her. Therefore, they should retreat. Jin still felt awkward and thought it would be wrong of him to just run away. He was extremely upset and disappointed that instead of helping, he could only watch from the sidelines. This was not the life he wanted. After signing a contract with Soldreth and being reborn, he met Muraken. Jin could have started with more luck and strength than anyone, but just look at him. To think that he needs to back off without being able to respond properly. Just like back then, on the day of his death. Never. Jin never wants to experience such helplessness again. He must definitely become stronger. Muraken grinned because he was proud of Jin's striving for perfection. He knew that Jin wouldn't be scared, but it was something to be fired up after such a sight. Muraken was so proud that he wanted to bite him. Strong energy, enough to sting Muraken's back. It was undoubtedly Jin. An incredibly noticeable fighting aura from a 15-year-old teenager who had only recently reached the 5th rank. If he continues at this pace, he will become the best in the world. And until that moment, he, Muraken, will support him because he is his contractor after 1,000 years. Muraken wasn't thrilled about the escape either. However, he was looking forward to Jin's future. As soon as they left, Luna asked Andre if he thought he could kill her just because his form had changed a little. If he thought so, he was very much mistaken. Andre pointed his finger at Luna's head. A huge energy burst out of his finger, which the moon took over. Although it was a strong attack, there were no scratches on the moon. Andre laughed. Within him is the power of the 12 gods. And what does she have? She has nothing but a sword, which is too big for her. She should just admit it and give up. Even if her father were here, he wouldn't be a match for him. Needless to say, it was nonsense. Shire and Rankandel would have easily crushed someone like Andre. Luna listened to him and said that one blade was enough for a sword master. If Andre had used the magic he had trained all his life, he would have been able to see only half of her fighting technique. Andre tried to answer, but restrained himself when he saw that the Krantel was painted red. Luna said she would show him out of pity how strong a sharpened sword is against something so pathetic. Andre bowed his head in confusion. He had fought hundreds of knights, but he had never seen any of them use a red-tinged aura. It was the first time he had seen something like this, but it didn't matter. He has reached the level of a god. Thanks to the Source Stone, he grew himself a couple of extra arms. Andre stretched out several hands up and began to gather energy. He was yelling about showing her how weak she was. A crimson light engulfed the island and the sky. Andre didn't feel a bit of danger. He trusted the power of the Devil's Stone too much. The Sword of the Heart, the Red Moon. Luna waved her sword, and a massive red wave of energy quickly swept across the island. The ground soon began to rumble, and in an instant it split apart, forming cracks. A streak of red light passed through the entire island and cut Andre. The Source Stone was also cut. The space around him cracked like glass, and the dark energy of the ball was sucked into its cracks. After the battle, the island goes into the water. At the moment when the moon, which was on one knee due to exhaustion, almost reached the edge, she was being sucked in. Muraken was descending at full speed, and Jin held out his hand to her. She barely caught it and flashed a smile. It seems that her younger brother saved her today. The island they fought on completely disappeared after the devastating onslaught of the meteor shower, the Mind Blade, and the explosion caused by the destruction of the Source Stone. This destructive force was enough to completely destroy the island. The Bement Empire found out about this and sent an investigation team. In the nearby seas, the Naval Security Service witnessed powerful explosions and warned the mainland. The sent investigation team consisted of Imperial magicians and the third group of the Special Affairs Department of Bement. They could only be shocked by the devastated scenery. It's one thing to destroy an island, but the terrible mana continued to swirl in oblivion. This was the main reason why they could not approach the remnants of the island. Once I reported this news, I reported it to the Emperor. He told him that strange matter had absorbed nearby matter, and a large amount of mana was found around this area. Although humans played a role, more importantly, it was the magical power of the Dragon of Time and Wind. The Special Affairs Department of the Bement Empire suspected that Valletta from the Zippel family was involved in the case. Before the incident, a message was received about his crossing the border. At the same time, apparently, the Wind Dragon fell on that island. Once he pulled out a green scale and showed it to the Emperor. The Emperor asked about human mana. Have they found their owners? Once he replied that it was a contractor. The Emperor sighed. Contractors with keepers and sinister energy. It was obvious that all this had something to do with the thing that Zippels create. The Emperor also asked if Andre was alive. Once he only replied that they were studying this issue. The man slammed his fist on the table. Recently, a lot of details have been removed from the reports. Haven't they determined who was staying at Quickhandles yet? He bowed his head once. He had no excuses. The Emperor paused for a moment. Well, it can't be helped. If even once I couldn't, then who? He told Razu to make sure they didn't spill anything to the press. If they can't find Ania by the evening, they have to file a missing persons report. The Emperor also ordered more people from the Special Affairs Department to be sent to the Zippel territory to check on their condition. Although they are on friendly terms, it is better to be safe. He asked if he understood the fact of why he was so restless. Once he replied that he would meet his expectations. After that, the most important person in the Bement Empire left the room with his retinue. His name was Amir Bement. In the workshop of Buber Gaston, located in the Duchy of Kirano, Vishkal sat down, suppressing his anger. Buber was shocked that the Zippels used the Source Stone. Vishkal explained that there was a battle between the Silver and Wind Dragons on the coast of Bement, as a result of which the island disappeared. A vortex formed in its place, so he was sure that the stone had broken. Hearing this, Buber screamed, "How dare they destroy his creation?" He was telling them not to use it so casually until it was completed. He told Vishkal that he would never forgive them. Bauber offered to tell them everything they thought about them. These stupid magicians don't realize the value of his work. During the whole conversation, the remnants of food from his mouth flew at Vishkal. When Buber threw a tantrum, Vishkal grimaced. The mindless bastards of Zippel ruined everything. Because of them, he has to postpone killing this pig. In any case, the head of Kinzello was furious. He wants to renegotiate the alliance with the Zippel family, so he told Bubara not to contact them anymore. On the topmost floor of the Zippel family's mage tower, a man looking into a crystal ball spoke. He said Andre was dead. It was the head of the Zippel family, Kellark Zippel. Although Andre was his younger brother, the news that the deputy had died did not particularly affect him. Unlike the perception of his appearance in the world, he had the face of a young man. Anyone who did not know what Kellark looked like in his youth would not have been able to immediately recognize him on the street. The only creature that could talk so comfortably with Kellark Zippel was the fire dragon Kadun, one of the dragons of the flame god and the guardian dragon of Kellark. He slowly fried the meat using the breath coming out of his muzzle. He didn't seem to care about Andre and Valletta's deaths either. Even the Source Stone didn't help them, it showed their uselessness. Although Quickhandle was strong, Andre and Valletta were quite capable of killing her. It was a little confusing. Kellark said that either the Silver Dragon's strength exceeded their expectations, or someone else intervened. It's probably one of them, maybe even both. Kadun thought about it. Who could it be? And then it dawned on him. After all, they received a report that the Shadow Dragon killed the grave giant in Kinzella. He assumed that the culprit of Andre and Valletta's death was Misha. If it was her, then everything was clear. She wouldn't be afraid of the Devil's Stone. Misha was the sister of Mirakan of the Rankandel family. Besides, Quickhandle is his brother's ex. Therefore, Quickhandle is not quite an outsider for Misha. Kellark thought about it, and then told the dragon that he now had a job. Kadun chuckled. Did Kellark want him to find her? It was impossible. If the black dragons want to hide, no one can find them. Kellark laughed softly, telling him not to be a child. In addition, they disgraced themselves by missing the Source Stone. Kadun approached and asked if he was okay, because he had lost his brother. Kellark replied that he was sad, of course, but he knew it would happen. Kellark was shocked when he found out that Andre had attended Shiren's banquet and didn't even say anything. Kadun didn't believe him. He told Kellark to have the Devil's Stonemaker make another one. Without him, they will be able to run the Rankandel family as long as Shiren is alive. The stone is also needed to control the kings of the Black Sea. Kellark replied that he was not the only one annoyed by what was happening. Kadun repeated Kellark's words. Don't be a child. If he was planning to take over the world, the stone was necessary. And, of course, a stone is needed to become a god. Jin and his companions arrived at the Kashmir mansion in Tikkun, and Gilly, who was waiting for their arrival, ran frantically to them. Jin asked her to cook them something to eat. They couldn't eat while they were flying. When she saw the moon, she froze, and then lost consciousness. Mirka helped her regain consciousness. She muttered that her young master would be kicked out of the family. Luna said that Nanny Gina had misunderstood something. It was obvious how worried his nanny was about him. Jin smiled softly as he looked at her. Jilly was too good for him. At that moment, Kashmir appeared. Jin started introducing others to him. He introduced the moon first. Luna smiled. So this is the noble Kashmir sword that she has heard a lot about. Kashmir was surprised to see her. He said he was flattered by such a high assessment. It was an honor for him to meet her. Then his gaze shifted to Quickhantle. Jin told him that it was an Asgardian dragon, the silver dragon Quickhantle. Recognizing her as a dragon, Kashmir bowed deeply, as if he was her subordinate. Kashmir just didn't want to step on the same rake again. After that, Jin said that he was sorry, as he had not informed him earlier. Kashmir nodded, saying that everything was fine, because they were in the same boat. At that moment, a disgruntled Quickhantle asked where Nia was. Kashmir was just about to tell her about it. Ladder returned 3 hours ago. Now he was with his daughter and Nia. However, there was one oddity. Ladder did not remember anything at all about his disappearance. Ladder said he didn't remember anything after Valletta's words about learning dragon language magic. Ladder was too well for them to say he was threatened by the Zippel family. Maybe he really wasn't kidnapped. Quickhandle shook her head. She personally received a confession from the bastards. Mirakin said that the Zippels were erasing evidence. They cover up everything connected with the Devil's Stone, including remembering Ladder. This is their family trait. When events go against the plans, the Zippels burn bridges. Kashmir asked about the Devil's Stone. He had never heard of him before. Jin began to explain all the events to him, from the battle with the Wind Dragon and the 9th rank magician Andre Zippel to the Devil's Stone. After that, Kashmir understood everything. Jin has been through a lot. He was very grateful to him for that. So what did the Zippels achieve? Mirakin already understood what the Zippels were trying to achieve with this. The Devil's Stone. There is only one reason why the Zippels decided to imitate the Source Stone. Someone wants to become a god. They are trying to gather all the power of the existing gods and destroy the obstacles on the way to this goal, to become the only deity controlling their world. Kashmir told them to rest. It uses all possible resources of 7 colors. If Quickhandle wishes, he will take her to Ania. Of course she wanted to, so he took her to Ania. Jilly woke up, and then when she saw the moon, she experienced a severe shock while losing consciousness again. Luna was in a good mood when she heard about Jin's achievements. After they destroyed the infamous Tessing organization, Arkan became safe. The deputy head of the Zippel family and Valletta are dead, and he did it all in just 2 months. The last battle may have been completed by the moon, but if it wasn't for him, Andre and Valletta would never have come to the island at all. No temporary flag bearer in the history of Rankandel has achieved so many achievements in such a short period of time. Jin even used magic without getting official confirmation. If he had been caught, he would have been sleeping in the grave by now. She said things like death with a bright smile. Luna praised him, saying that these were incredible achievements. Jilly had already recovered. She was stroking Mirakin. When she saw the moon, she thought it was over. Luna laughed. She apologized for scaring her. Luna said Jilly didn't have to worry. Once she can look at it through her fingers. Jilly finally managed to exhale. Now they only need to avoid the head of the family. Luna's subsequent words that the head was in the know stunned her. Because of this, poor Mirakin suffered in her hands. Luna continued with the same smile. Shire knew everything, from the incident in Tessing, ending with the death of Andre. Soon he will find out about her participation. Jean told Gilly not to worry. He had an idea. Jilly breathed a sigh of relief. Jin had a plan, so she couldn't help but exhale. But the continuation of his words shocked them. He said he wanted to meet his father with his sister. He wanted to talk to his father. Luna looked at Jin incredulously. She said he was clearly out of his mind. Luna asked them not to do anything. Then their father would just close his eyes. What was he even thinking when he said that? Jin replied that he only wanted to warn that the Zippel family was in the middle of executing a plan to attack the Rankandel family. If we are talking about the Devil's Stone, then the moon can report about it. He didn't need to take that risk. Luna asked if he didn't understand what it meant for a reserve flag bearer to return to the family. Is he really going to take the standard bearer exam? Jin shook his head. Shiren will find out anyway that everything happened because of him. And since it's come to this, it's better if he talks to his father in person. He might even be able to make a deal with his father. Jilly covered her mouth with her hand. Luna laughed. She's old enough, but she's never even mentioned a deal or anything like that. Even Luna was worried that her brother might have injured his head during the battle. The moon was extremely gloomy. If Jin goes on like this, his father will kill him. Jin nonchalantly replied that he believed that when the time came, the elder sister would stop him. Luna approached Jin and looked into his eyes. They stood looking into each other's eyes for a few seconds. She could only click her tongue. In the end, Luna didn't convince Jin. Her younger brother intimidated the family. She clearly saw how hard it was for Gilly. Luna said she would go with him. Jin replied that he planned to use the first teleportation gate tomorrow. Luna nodded. It was better not to linger. Jilly wanted to thank her, but was stopped by Luna. Since their family consists of those who strive to grab another by the throat, at least she should give him warmth. Therefore, the moon will become Jin's shield. She was sure that Jin, as usual, was up to something. Jin and Luna were leisurely heading to the head of the family. Their path was blocked by Runsha. She asked why she had brought Jin. The moon had to change his mind. Runsha spoke in a low tone, but there was a cold, furious look in her eyes. Luna turned to Jin. She should treat him well. Jin somewhat sheepishly agreed. The fourth son, Vigo Rankandel, was the first to exclaim. He called them crazy. Is his youngest really that stupid to come back? The future standard bearers should not look for the Garden of Swords. Next to him were his fourth and fifth daughters, Mew and Anna. They said it was the result of their sister's condescension. Jin evades the responsibility of a backup flag bearer. They said it was too brazen on their part. Luna thought silently. Everyone has prepared well. Does the father know about this? In the residence outside the window, Marie and Diff Rankandels were watching everything. It was shocking. Did Junior give up his right to become a flag bearer? No, rather, puberty made him wonder if there is life after death. Marie was a little angry. How would Junior dare to do that? They should fight when he grows up. Diff clicked his tongue and looked at Marie. However, Marie didn't answer and instead continued to look at Jin. From the moment she gave him the phoenix heart, she had been waiting for a great battle with Jin. But now that he was standing in front of them, she could only be confused and disappointed. When the intruders stood like statues, Runsha sighed and approached them. She asked about why she brought him today. Luna replied that Jin had come by himself. Runsha was unhappy. Then her task was to stop him. What kind of frivolity? Even though Runsha was scolding her, Luna had nothing to say. After all, she was more or less right. Annoyed, Luna turned away from all the insults. Ever since she was little, Luna found it difficult to deal with Runsha, which explained why the second daughter was the only sister who could talk to her in this way. Turning away, Luna asked about their father's whereabouts. Runsha looked at her younger brother. Did he really want to meet his father? Jin nodded, startling her. Vigo roared. Was he so eager to die? He survived only by luck. Did he really get arrogant because he overtook the twins? If the moon hadn't been there, the Rankandel siblings would have torn Jin to shreds. Runsha sighed and let Jin pass. She said his father was waiting for him in his office. Jin moved, and Luna followed him. Runsha drew her sword and blocked her path. From now on, the first standard bearer must lower his sword. It was Shiren's order. He told the reserve flag bearer to return without a support group. Luna thought about it. In that case, if their father decides to kill Jin, she won't be able to become his shield. What if she refuses? The moon released its tyrannical aura. The brothers and sisters drew their swords and surrounded her. Runsha replied that this was the last chance. She must lay down her arms. If she resists, she will be killed. Luna gritted her teeth. Jin turned around and told her not to worry. As a member of the Rankandel family, no, as his father's son, he is obliged to report. Nothing bad will happen. His brothers and sisters have quieted down. To them, he was just crazy. Jean headed for the house. He expected such a reaction from their family, but he would be lying if he said he wasn't nervous. His brothers and sisters didn't know their father well. Although the return of the reserve flag bearer home is contrary to the rules, but the head is not one of those who care about these rules. In any case, it was impossible to get something from Shiren without fear of danger. He couldn't shy away from the excitement. On top of that, after his regression, Jin thought it was much easier to understand his father. Usually, he couldn't even look his father in the eye. However, Jin now felt most comfortable when confronting him. If Shiren gives him a chance to explain like last time, there won't be any problems. Jin took a deep breath as he walked to the office door and knocked gently. A blade beam flew past Jin's head, which the boy did not notice. Shortly after, Shiren's booming voice rang out. The blade beam turned the office door into dust. The man said that it looked like his expectations were too high. He was sure he had given Jin 5 years. So why did he come back? The dust of the door silently flew away. Jin had heard about it. The energy of Shiren's sword completely destroys enemies. He also uses an aura sword. It must be a demonstration. Surprisingly, his father turned out to be weaker than he imagined. Since there were remnants of the object, albeit in the form of dust, it would be inaccurate to say that it completely disintegrated. However, Shiren's swordsmanship still consisted of techniques that went beyond the human. In fact, he didn't even have a sword in his hand. Instead, there were glowing embers of a disappearing aura at his fingertips, implying that he had temporarily materialized a sword. Although the destroyed door was a deadly threat, Jin felt that he had received a gift. Shiren said he would not repeat his question twice. Looking at his father, Jin smiled for some reason. His mind calmed down the moment he saw Shiren, and the things he wanted to discuss kept popping up in his head. He immediately chose what to answer. Should there be a reason for a son to visit his father? Jin won't make any apologies, even if he gets smeared. You need to be confident, but not arrogant. Jin replied that he only came because he missed him. A strange feeling came over Shiren. Did you miss me? Has he ever heard such a thing from his children? It wasn't a bad feeling. His feelings were sincere, and Jin's words left him speechless. He had 13 children, but they all called him simply father. Apart from that name, he never established a normal relationship with them. The childhood of Rankandel's offspring was the responsibility of nannies, and as soon as the children turned 1 and completed the selection ritual, they were sent to the Castle of the Storm. After reaching the age of 10 and returning to the Garden of Swords, the children had to be afraid of Shiren and Rose. This was because they learned about their parents in various classes and lectures at the Tempest Castle. In addition to being parents, they were the absolute rulers of a huge house. In fact, Shiren and Rose had the power to turn the world around. If possible, children will be taught through violence if they do not give good results. So, of course, they didn't expect any "I missed you" from their children by putting them in such an environment. All they wanted was to determine the next in line to the throne, the one who would continue the great legacy of Shiren, the greatest swordsman in the world. Shiren said it was inappropriate. Did he become soft after contact with the outside world? Jin replied that the outside world had nothing to do with it. He said he had always liked Shiren. Shiren stifled a laugh and took a deep breath, causing the air in the room to suddenly become as sharp as a knife. With every breath he took, he felt as if thorns were piercing his lungs. It was a bloodthirsty intent. It had been a long time since his heart had been overflowing with emotions. Looking back, ever since he ascended to the demigod realm, it was his youngest son who had always worried him. Jin thought he had said something wrong. Shiren said that he did not expect this from him. He told Jin to stop talking nonsense and get down to business. Jin should give the reason for his return. Depending on the answer, his fate will be decided. And it was true. Shiren had intentions of beheading Jin the moment he replied with some useless things. Then he would instantly erase Jin from his heart. Similarly, he slaughtered and killed his brothers and sisters before becoming patriarch. Jin replied that the deputy head of the Zippels who insulted him at the banquet, Andre Zippel, had died. Shiren looked at him for a long time and asked if he had killed him himself. Jin shook his head. The moon killed him, but it was he who put Andre in this position. In addition, there were a couple more details. If the father does not mind, he will report to him about what happened. It was audacious, but Shiren agreed to listen to him. Jin then explained his narrative from the days spent in Arkan and Tikkun to the events in the Bement Empire. Of course, he didn't report everything. Jin took care not to mention Aluk's suspicions of connections with Rankandel, the Rune of Malta, the Grimoire of Chenmi, and his alliance with Kashmir with its 7 colors. And the reason for his return is to tell him, Shiren Rankandel, about the changes in the Zippel family due to the death of their deputy. Is that really all? Jin shook his head and continued. Andre was not a full-fledged deputy. His older sister is certainly strong, but for the deputy head of the only family that is able to resist the Rankandels, he was too weak, although it's just his feelings. Shiren nodded his head. Jean was right. Andre is just a figure, just like he said. You can't call him a real vice head. There's clearly someone behind Kellark. In any case, this is not something Shiren can share with Jin. Jin thanked his father for confirming his guess. He also didn't mention something else. Jin said that Andre used a strange artifact. Shiren raised an eyebrow. Andre called the artifact the Devil's Stone. After collecting the information, he discovered that it was an imitation of the Source Stone that the gods had created a long time ago. Shiren asked if Murekin had filled him in on the details. Jin was startled and stared at his father. Did he already know? Shiren replied that this was not the only thing he knew. He is also aware that Jin can use mana. Did his youngest son think he could hide this fact from him? Of course, Jin understood that his father knew something, but doubted that he knew about Murekin. Shiren burst out laughing. He wanted to laugh because he was proud of his son, and he couldn't hold back anymore after making fun of Murekin. But he only suspected about him. Jin just confirmed it himself. The Rankandel moth. To think that his son had degraded the great black dragon to a domestic cat. Jin couldn't laugh with Shiren out of embarrassment, but it looked like his father was having fun. Soon he stopped laughing. Imitation of the Source Stone. Jin got some pretty important information. Shiren decided to talk to Luna. He didn't know how far the Zippel family had come in creating the artifact, but this power was dangerous. He wondered if the kings of the Black Sea knew about it. Having ascended to the realm of the demigods, Shiren spent most of his time in the Black Sea. He had fought his kings many times, and each king was a particle of the Origin Stone. There's a reason they're up to something. He should visit the Black Sea. Shiren said that this time he would turn a blind eye to blatant violations of the rules. But beyond that, he asked him to say what he wanted. That was all Jin wanted. Even before he offered the deal, Shiren placed the gift in front of him. But Jin knew his father wouldn't let him leave with something for free. As soon as he announces his request, Shiren will definitely add some conditions. He had to think hard. If he asked for something too big, then the conditions would be excessively strict. But that didn't mean he had to back down. Jin asked not to allow other members of the Rankandel family to visit the independent city of Tikkun for a while, justifying its name. Tikkun was a land that was not connected to anyone, be it the Rankandels, the Zippels, or the imperial family of Bemen. At the same time, all three powers sought to colonize this land. It wasn't for power or resources. Getting 7 colors, experienced people, and a trade center would be a remarkable 3-in-1 achievement. It was just a free gold coin on Earth. Tikkun wasn't worth fighting with other clans for land, but it was still wasteful to leave such an easy acquisition alone. Shiren's eyes flashed with light. So Tikkun is the place that became the main base of his youngest son. Okay, but he had one test for Jin. The hidden master of the Tikkun, the noble Kashmir sword. Jin needs to make him one of his people and bring proof. If he succeeds, Shiren will not allow any member of the Rankandel family to set foot in Tikkun without his permission. The term is 1 year. Shiren wanted to see if Jin could prove that he was capable of getting this arrogant bastard who refused the Rankandel teacher position. Doubting his ears, Jin let out a refreshing scream in his mind. After all, Kashmir was already Jin's ally. Soon Kashmir was in front of Shiren. Although he didn't show it, Shiren was a little surprised that Jin met him with a confident expression on his face. That's how it is. Shiren called Kashmir an arrogant bastard. The man in front of Kashmir is the world's strongest swordsman, Shiren Rankandel. Just looking at him made Kashmir's stomach hurt. Kashmir refused numerous offers to become an instructor of the cadets of the Rankandel elementary class. In the process of turning Tikkun into a country, becoming an instructor of the Rankandel clan obviously won't help. Moreover, it would be a distraction from his main goals. Also, Shiren was someone he didn't want to meet. However, Kashmir couldn't blame Shiren for feeling disrespected when he declined the offer several times. In addition, if Shiren tries to team up with Tikkun, Kashmir will have no way to resist him. Kashmir clenched his fist. He is a guest of young Master Jin, so he can't be afraid of Shiren. The pressure was far beyond rumors. Although Kashmir was also quite a strong knight, he knew that his fencing was child's play in the presence of Shiren. As soon as Shiren spoke, Kashmir immediately bowed deeply, as well as to the dragons. He asked me to call him Kashmir. He instinctively stuttered as he answered. He didn't even know what he was saying. Inside, he was crying, and outside, sweat was streaming down his face. He wasn't even embarrassed to have Jin by his side. It seemed that after meeting Jin, he just kept meeting scary people. Jin turned to his father. As soon as he gave the go-ahead, he continued. Jin said that his relationship with Kashmir is like a common fate. He proved his friendship with him. So it's time for Shiren to keep his promise. Kashmir doubted his ears as he listened to Jin's speech. For a moment, many possible dark outcomes flashed through Kashmir's brain. A common fate with my son. So the Tikkun belongs to the Rankandel family. It suggests something like this. A common destiny. It turns out that Tikkun and Rankandel can unite. Or this. Kashmir represented Shiren exactly like that. Of course, this was only the result of Kashmir's fear. He was very worried about the independence of Tikkun. Shiren closed his eyes. That's the sly one. He is confident in himself even after he fooled his father. In fact, Shiren was very pleased. He didn't know what Jin did to meet Kashmir, but his youngest son exceeded expectations. Jin replied that he had not deceived him. He was just lucky. Shiren nodded and said that he had passed the test. From now on, no Rankandel will set foot on the land of Tikkun without his permission. If there was nothing to say to him, then he could leave. Shiren wanted to talk to Kashmir in person. Jin bowed and left the office. Left alone with Shiren, Kashmir cleared his throat, looking at Jin's back, which was moving further and further away. Shiren's aura made him tremble. The conversation will be exhausting for him. When Jin reached the end of the stairs, his expression froze at the sight of 2 guys running towards him. They asked anxiously about his well-being. After Jin left the courtyard to see his father, the Tone twins were very worried about his imminent death. However, they were afraid of their other brothers and sisters, so they stayed where they were and bit their nails. Jin said he had a request for them. The Tone twins looked at him, waiting for an explanation. They were already amazed that their younger brother had returned alive after meeting his father, but his request for a request out of nowhere confused them very much. Jin replied that there was simply nothing complicated. It was about the cadets of his group. Jin wanted the twins to take care of them before he returned. Before the Tone twins could respond, Jin was gone. He had to tell Luna, who was probably very worried, that he was fine. Looking at Jin's back, the Tone twins shrugged their shoulders. Jin was behaving as usual. He was too relaxed after meeting his father. As they expected, Jin was intimidating. Outside, the brothers and sisters guarding the moon were shocked to see Jin walking out of the door unharmed. Jin told Luna that her father was waiting for her. He said he wanted to ask about that day. In fact, the others had no idea what they were talking about, and he wasn't happy about that. Jin only replied that this was not the kind of information about which he could spread right and left, and he was furious at his words. At that moment, Kashmir came up. He was squeezed like a lemon. He wanted to find out who this stranger was, but was stopped by Runcha. It looks like the head has finished his business. That meant they were free. Mew, though reluctantly, retreated. The patriarch's orders are absolute. Jin thanked Luna for her help. He owed her. She replied that even a simple thank you would be enough. Jin was already leaving, as he wanted to devote himself to training. After saying goodbye to Luna, she and Kashmir quickly left the Garden of Swords, and Luna went to the study. All their other brothers and sisters remained standing and doing nothing. A month later, an underground training ground in the Kashmir mansion. In the 30th sparring match between Gene Rankandel and Alika Badger, Gene Rankandel suffered his 30th defeat and asked for the 31st. In early August 1795, the Zippel press finally officially announced the death of the deputy head of the Zippel, Andrei Zippel, and his dragon Violetta. Despite the official statement, the cause of death has not been clarified. Even the date of death was invented. In addition, the names of Quickhantel or Gina were not mentioned anywhere. However, it was big news. The Rankandels, the Bement imperial family, and other forces, including the Ice Palace, sharpened their senses and watched the situation unfold. In light of this news, a lot of rumors have spread among people. Some said that Andre and Violetta were victims of internal strife, others that they were killed in a fight by competitors. There were even rumors that they had incurred the wrath of Emperor Bement. However, the most reliable assumption was that they died in a fight with the Rankandel family. Of course, the official place of death was a remote island in the Bement Empire. And at that time, the Rankandel family's flag bearers were in the Garden of Swords. In addition, the Zippel family and the imperial family of Bement could not determine what would prove the involvement of the moon. But for the masses, the truth didn't matter. They thought that a more interesting narrative deserved to be true more than the truth itself. There were frightened predictions that a war would break out between the Zippels and the Rankandels. People began to wonder who would win, sword or magic. But the answer to this is simple. The one from whom the current strongest neutral power turns away will lose. Many thought that the Rankandels and Zippels would finally start a war. They definitely believed that Andre's killer was Rankandel. An interest in foreign policy was shown not only by commoners, but also by nobles and soldiers, especially neutral powers that were not directly related to the Rankandel family. The Bement imperial family, the Zippel family, or other major powers. Like the Ice Palace, they maintained a neutral state. But, unlike the Ice Palace, small families could not protect themselves in case of danger, which basically forced them to side with the Rankandels and Zippels. If a war broke out between swords and magic, neutral states in the gray area would turn into dust, standing between a hammer and an anvil. And surprisingly, neutral forces preferred the sword more than magic. They all huddled together to the Rankandel family, and not to the Zippel family, despite the fact that the latter is considered the strongest at the moment. The Rankandel's first-class butler, Heinz, reported that the Prince of the Shuren Kingdom, along with second-rate mercenary groups, asked for support and sent gifts. Shiren ordered the gifts to be returned and their request accepted. He also ordered the Shuren Kingdom to receive a worthy sword. They should make sure that he is the one to take the throne later. Heinz bowed. Then they will send an 8th-rank guardian knight, as long as the requester was not Shiren's direct enemy. He accepted any request, although the neutral forces were not present in the world and in fact did not support the Rankandels at all. Small families would be of some use once the Swordmaster's family overcame the Zippels and became the ruler of the world. As more and more families sought to ally with the Rankandel, more and more rumors spread among the common people that the Zippels would no longer be able to outrun the Rankandels. And the fact that all neutral forces sided with the Rankandel family made the rumor even more likely. Shiren was thinking about his son while Heinz was leaving. Of course, the rumors that the Rankandels were superior to the Zippels were just rumors. The Zippel family was going pretty well, and the truth was that the Rankandel family was only a little ahead. All this is the result of a commotion that the younger one made on one of the Bement Islands. The boy already controlled the family. What an impudent man. Shiren grinned and summoned the Khan's guardian knight. He told him that he wanted to visit the Black Sea. If Kashmir sends a letter, then Khan must deliver it to him. Khan will be personally responsible for this. After returning from the Garden of Swords, Jin, whom Shiren really wanted to hear about, devoted his time to personal training. Bradamante violently swept through the air. After he struck more than 10,000 times, his muscles seemed to explode and his bones crumbled. However, Jin felt more anxiety than pain. Even for the 10,000th time, the swing should feel like the first one. It still wasn't enough. If the moon hadn't come, he would have been dead by now. 15 years since his rebirth, Jin had reached the 5th rank in both swordsmanship and magic. But even the 5th level of shadow energy was not enough, considering what the future holds for them, which made Jin feel impatient. He felt it most of all after the battle on the island. Although he was very talented and strong for a 15-year-old, there weren't many enemies he could handle alone. He needs to get stronger in the 5 years his father has given him. Jin needs to become strong enough to defeat all his brothers and sisters, strong enough not to need anyone's help, and the moon especially motivated him. The opponent, whom Muraken and Quickhandle could not touch with a finger, was defeated with a single swing of the sword. She looked like a goddess of war. However, even the goddess of war went to the Garden of Swords, threw down her weapons and was humiliated, just because she had to save someone weaker. Jin's enemies were like this. They first targeted his comrades so that they could not help him. Kashmir was right next to Jin when he was getting ready for another swing. He asked Jin to take a break. If he wore himself out every day, even with the gifted body of the Rankandel family, he would be left with nothing. Ania, who was following Kashmir, ran up to Jin. All his palms are wiped in blood. Kashmir approached the genie. He understood Jin's impatience. Although no one of his peers can compare with him, future enemies will also not be ordinary people. However, haste is the most dangerous poison. Sooner or later it will take its toll. Ania, meanwhile, was treating Jin's palms. Jin was ashamed, because Kashmir's words were true. He was fully aware of it, but it was difficult to fight it. Kashmir shook his head. I shouldn't have been ashamed of it. Jin tolerates such a volume of training that no one can do in a day. He would say it's amazing. There was a small puddle under the Jin, consisting of blood and sweat. Red threads swirled in the clear water. Kashmir stared at the pool of blood. He noted the incredible resilience of the genie. He had never seen anything like it in a 15-year-old boy. Kashmir suggested Jin give priority to calming exercise. He was referring to sparring with someone much stronger than himself. Jin asked Kashmir if he was talking about himself. Kashmir shook his head. Jin was still too weak for that. Although Kashmir understood, so far he had only shown Jin his weak side. He took out his sword and swung. Sword furrows formed on the floor. It was as if the earth had been struck by an invisible whip. Kashmir was called a noble sword for a reason. He told Jin that they would fight when he learned how to deflect such an attack. Instead, he offered him a training session with the strongest guardian of the Tikkun. 6 months. During this time, Jin must defeat Kashmir's wife. Swordsmanship, magic, shadow energy. He could use everything he had. Alika Badger. Along with her massive build, she had a scar on her left eye. She was also the chief of defense of Tikkun and the wife of the noble sword Kashmir. Criminals in Mamita. Her massive build made her twice as big as Kashmir. Whatever, but she's definitely not normal. But was she that strong? Jin possessed swordsmanship, magic, and shadow energy. Would it really take 6 months? He saw her every day for a month after he arrived in Tikkun. They had breakfast at the same table and joked from time to time. He really didn't feel that she was strong. Julia asked if she and Jean were going to fight. Alika corrected her daughter. They will not fight, but strengthen friendship. Julia said she didn't like fighting. Alika asked with a smile who Julia would be rooting for if she and Jean fought. Julia chose Jean without hesitation. After all, her brother Jin is weak. Her mom said she should always be on the side of the weak. Alika laughed. She asked Jin not to be offended, because her daughter could only tell the truth. Jin smiled wryly. Well, then they would train after the end of her working day and dinner. Every day for 6 months. Every day. Jin said he felt uncomfortable taking up so much of her time. Alika told him not to worry, because they would finish quickly. 2 days later, in the underground hall of the Kashmir mansion, to improve the condition of his body, he took a 2-day break from training. And since he was in the best shape for their first sparring, he planned to compare and check his subsequent results. Alika stood in front of the genie and relaxed and spoke. Before she started, she wanted to warn about something. She used to work in the Special Affairs Department of Bement. After such an experience, you stop restraining yourself. So if he loses, then there is no need to get upset. After hearing this, Jin immediately understood why he didn't feel her power. Unlike the Imperial Guard of the Bement Empire, the Bement Special Affairs Department had to operate in the shadows. Thus, the first thing they learned was how to hide their strength. He expected something like this, but the Special Affairs Department of Bement, Kashmir did not say 6 months for nothing. Jin knew that the members of Bement's Special Affairs Department were at least rank 6. However, it was only a minimum. If she was guarding the Prince of Kashmir, she would definitely be at least the 7th rank. Alika closed the distance between them. Her fist was right in front of Jin's face. The speed of her movement was not what an ordinary knight of the 5th rank could react to. She planned to end the first battle with a single blow. Even though it was just sparring, fighting like it was real was her ideology. So, Alika aimed her fist at Jin's face. However, it met the surface of the scabbard instead. Jin has already activated the Molt rune. Alika stepped back. Jin used the spell he had prepared before coming to the underground training ground. Flashbang, even for a trained knight. Closing his eyes due to a blinding flash of light was inevitable, even a moment before the victory over the enemy. Alika quickly recovered from this. Jin stood in a stance and made a stabbing blow with his sword. Alika easily dodged and threw Jin several meters into the air with a powerful blow. Alika said she was surprised. She didn't think Jin would be able to attack her twice on the first day. He didn't put much effort into the first attack. Was he trying to loosen up before sparring? It was an interesting move. She asked about the light that appeared while they were fighting. Alika had never seen such magic. Jin explained that it was an ancient spell, a veil of flashes. He covered his sword with it before starting. However, even that didn't work. It seems that such tricks will not work with her. Alika corrected his choice of words. This was not some trick, but a real carefully thought out plan. She thought about it. Jin was able to defeat much stronger opponents not just because of luck. It's about the opportunities and changes created with the help of detailed calculations and forecasts. Alika could have admired such a technique in sparring, but if it was a real fight, she could imagine the faces of his rivals. Meanwhile, Jin was also deep in thought. This was the first time he had been completely defeated after using all possible tactics. Is it because she's from the Special Affairs Department of Bement? 6 months. To defeat her, you will have to fight with her for 6 months. They agreed on one thing. It'll be fun. Kashmir was writing something down outside the door. A month later, on September 22, 1795, an unprotected area in the east of the continent, also known as the Black Sea. It's been 4 days since Guardian Night Han left. That meant he hadn't slept a wink in the last 4 days. Along the way, Khan slaughtered more than 500 monsters. Even the weakest of the monsters of the Black Sea were incomparably stronger than the monsters in the Gnome Land. That's because these monsters grew up breathing pure evil energy. Even for a Guardian Knight like Khan, the slightest mistake could easily lead to death. Such are the dangers of the Black Sea. Soon after, he finally found Shiren sitting in the middle of the Black Sea. Shiren, who had already noticed Han's presence, slowly opened his eyes. The knight began to greet him. The patriarch raised his hand and extended it to the Khan. Khan handed the letter over with both hands. It was a letter from Kashmir. It came 10 days ago. With a flick of his finger, Shiren tore the seal off the letter. The envelope was quite thick. Like an elder who has found old diary entries, Shiren began to read carefully. Shiren shuddered. He told him to report on Junior, but apparently he is a deeply sensitive person. Next time he will ask him to omit the pleasantries for a couple of pages. He was very annoyed, but with the patience of a knight, he turned the page. However, the next page was also filled with greetings and thanks, and on the third there was not even a single sentence about Jin. But then, on the 4th page, Shiren's face brightened a little. His eyes sparkled and he began to smile slowly. He even laughed a little. Han had been Shiren's bodyguard for the past 20 years, but this was the first time he had seen the patriarch like this. After Luna declared that she was not interested in inheriting the throne, Shiren was always cold with his children. Thus, Khan was dying of curiosity. What happened to young Master Jin that made the patriarch so happy? Shiren wondered what the younger one was doing on an isolated island, and he was being ruffled all the time by Kashmir's wife. The first sparring ended in 3 strokes. The second one is at 5, 7th at 10, the 20th at 25. On the 30th sparring, he withstood 40 blows. A letter before the 40th sparring, Khan said there were a lot of losses. In fact, if the fight is against the same person, he will gradually live longer. Did Jin's failures amuse his master? Shiren told one thing that made Khan's eyes open wide. Kashmir's wife worked in the 2nd department for special cases of Bement. The 2nd department was not something Jin could easily handle. Hoping only for luck, Khan congratulated Shiren. That wasn't all. At the 40th training session, Jin withstood more than 120 blows. He has overcome his limit. If Jin had been his firstborn, Shiren would have given him the family without the slightest regret. What a pity that he is the youngest. Khan was startled and stared at Shiren. Did he really mean as a successor? Shiren nodded. Han was surprised, but not because of Jin's pathetic 15 years. This is the first time the patriarch has spoken about his desired successor. Shiren had never chosen a successor before, although he was looking forward to some of his children like Luna. This was the first time he had directly expressed his opinion. People thought of Joshua only as the first candidate to succeed after Luna's rejection of the inheritance, but Shiren never really chose him. The same thing happened with the other candidates for successors, Marie, Diff and Runcha. Having put his thoughts in order, Khan spoke. He stated that it was still too difficult. Although Jin's growth is amazing, he is suitable now, but this does not mean that it will be so in the future. Jin wasn't cold-blooded. On the contrary, he was good-natured, he had a gentle nature. Shiren said Khan was right. That was what made Jin different from Joshua. When necessary, you need to be able to renounce your family. That was the essence of the Rankandels. Satisfied with the conversation, he told Khan that he could return. Before Khan left, Shiren asked why the letter arrived so late. Khan apologized. He was in a hurry with all his might, but due to the excessive number of monsters, he was delayed. Shiren Rankandel formed an aura sword on his hands and swung it, creating a path for Khan. Next time he must come earlier. Jin fell to the ground after another sparring session. It's been 3 months since Jin tried to defeat Alika. He no longer cast spells before a fight. Today was the 93rd day. But Jin was delicious. Just think, he's already getting to push her back. Jin smiled wearily. He will have to work hard to achieve the goal. She asked if Jin wanted dessert. Latry made ice cream. Jin refused. He needs to do something. Since last week, after every fight, Jin left the training ground only after 10,000 strokes. 10,000. A realm that can be awakened when the first and last of the 10,000 strokes are the same. After training with Alika, Jin could repeat the same punch 3,000 times. Even with an exhausted body, Alika watched Jin for a while. Every time during sparring, she feels how abnormal Jin's growth is. This is probably because his aura and magic power are growing at the same time. And this process is made possible by a black aura connecting the aura and magical flows. The power gained through the contract with God was amazing. But even so, it only makes sense thanks to Jin's tenacity. Jin was a genius who works hard. At this rate, you can forget about 6 months. She had already assumed that soon Jin would be able to defeat her. She never expected what was waiting for her the next day. The next day, during the 94th sparring, Alika finally lost to Jin. When the battle reached the 70 punch mark, Jin's punch pierced her shoulder. The moment his attack succeeded, they were both very surprised.